unfortunately, there are those out there who are just, they're just really not telling the truth about this, whether wittingly or unwittingly. I don't know. Maybe they're ignorant. I'm not trying to judge them. I'm simply saying that what's interesting is that there is a claim in Traditionis Custodes, and we hope that the Holy Father Pope Francis was merely uninformed about this, was misinformed, or we hope that he was not malicious in this case, but we don't know exactly. But the claim is that Summorum Pontificum was merely a pastoral concession to the SSPX. Merely a pastoral concession. We got these old SSPX, we've got this schismatic group, but we're just going to throw them a bone so they don't go into schism. That's the whole point of Summorum Pontificum. Now, what's interesting is that we have more or less an official interpretation of Summorum Pontificum by Pope Emeritus Benedict. So this is contained in Last Testament, this book right here. Last Testament is a interview with Peter Zewald, in which he discusses all these different things. Here's the book right here, Last Testament. This is it's an interview book with Peter Zewald, and in this book, he actually asks him, was Summorum Pontificum primarily about the SSPX? Which is what Traditionis Custodes and those who attempt to misinform the Holy Father or promote this misinformation, they say that, yes, it was primarily about the SSPX. It was just a pastoral concession. It had nothing to do with this intrinsic substantial nature. Well, what's amazing, this is in Last Testament, page 200 and 201. So Peter Zewald says to him, quote, the reauthorization of the Tridentine Mass is often interpreted primarily as a concession to the SSPX, end quote. So that right there is exactly what is said and stated in Traditionis Custodes. And it's repeated by others who seek to promote this misinformation. Again, whether wittingly or unwittingly, I don't know. But it is misinformation, because what does Pope Emeritus say? He says, that is just absolutely false. That is just absolutely false. Now, notice what he says now. He says, quote, it was important for me that the church is one with herself inwardly, with her own past, that what was previously holy to her is not somehow wrong now. The right must be developed. In that sense, reform is appropriate. So we can see already reform is appropriate. This is what he would have agreed with Paul VI. Yes, reform is appropriate. Everybody agreed that reform was appropriate. Even Archbishop Lefebvre agreed that reform was appropriate. But, as he says, the church must be one with herself inwardly. Continuing on with a quote from Benedict, quote, the SSPX is based on the fact that people felt the church was renouncing itself. That must not be. But as I said, my intention were not of a tactical nature. They were about the substance of the matter itself, the inward reconciliation of the church with itself, end quote. Now, in the full quote, if you look this up, he also says, yes, he says secondarily, yes, the Pope should be concerned about schism, but that's of a secondary nature. It's very clear when you read Milestones. He says that there's been a rupture in the reform already before the SSPX even exists. He says this right in Milestones with no consideration whatsoever to the SSPX. In other words, Summorum Pontificum would have been necessary even if the SSPX did not exist. And that's very clear if you understand Ratzinger's theology of the liturgy, theology of continuity. As trads, we criticize this hermeneutic of continuity because it's insufficient to solve all the problems. Yes, granted, it's insufficient to solve all the problems. But if we consider it just merely for the liturgy's sake, that very much sums up Ratzinger, one of Ratzinger's primary principles about his theology and his ecclesiology of the liturgy, is that there has to be this continuity with the church's tradition. The church does not abolish Orthodox rites. And that brings us to our next quotation here. Yes, so abolishing the TLM is against the spirit of the church.